I didn't have that fatherly guidance of like, hey son, this is what you should do, or hey son, great job out there today. And I think nowadays, because sports is so different 30 years later, there's so much pressure. I didn't even have the pressure. Now we live in a world 30 years later where you got to be good, you got to go to college, you got to get a scholarship, you got to make mom and dad happy. And then I started to see it as a coach, as a parent. I'm like, this is crazy. Like these kids, they're going to need that support and they're going to need the tools to navigate this pressure-filled environment. I wanted to be that person.
This happens even more with kids, but I still do it as a 41-year-old man. And that is thinking other people are judging us and that our vulnerability makes us weak. When in fact, if we can just be honest, present, vulnerable, that's a strength. That's the biggest strength we can have, because then we can relate to other people that see that and they're like, he's human. That's fantastic. Hey y'all, Josh Tomioni with the Derelict Podcast. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Would you do me a favor? It will only take you a couple seconds. Whether you're listening or watching right now, will you head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button? It really helps us get this message to more and more people that we can help. Greatly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
Hey, you derelicts. Welcome to another episode of the Derelict Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Tomioni, as usual. And what could go wrong with a couple of divorced dads having a conversation? I don't know. So Mike Huber is joining us today. He is a divorced dad of two teenagers. Are they girls or boys?
My oldest is a boy and my youngest is a girl.
Oh, got it. You get both the fun of the teenagers. None of mine have hit that stage yet as of the time of this recording. My oldest is 12, so he'll be there, about 6 months from now or so. He's also a certified mental performance consultant on a mission to help young guys, young athletes, become confident problem solvers through mental performance coaching, which is awesome. What a cool thing to do, man. I want to hear more about. Yeah, I want to hear more about how you got into that. I mean, obviously, I know today we're going to talk a lot about just kind of being divorced and, things that you've experienced, things that you've seen with your kids, et cetera. A lot of the people that listen to this podcast either are divorced or going through that process, and we speak to them quite a bit. So I'm really excited that you're here, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. It's great. I'm great. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Mike reached out to me online, and one of the things that really stood out to me about him when he did was just your honesty, your vulnerability about what you're going through, what you've been through, and the reason why you want to help kids, especially athletes. Maybe let's just start with that. Where did that come from? Were you an athlete yourself? How did that passion come about where you just decided, I really want to help mindset of young athletes? And what's the purpose? Actually, let's maybe start with that. Why? Like what's your ultimate goal with these guys that you work with?
Well, I think there's a lot of layers to the question. So I think the thing that comes to mind first is like, I wanted to be the person that I needed when I was a young athlete, because I was a young athlete. I played through high school and I was pretty good, but I was never better than pretty good. And I think a lot of it had to do with my mindset, my mentality, the way I handled myself internally more than the ability on the outside, right? So fast forward to that, I became a parent, and that was a big part of it as well, because I got into this field Can
you pause real quick before you fast forward? Because I want to hear what's in between the fast forward.
Okay. Yeah.
So tell me, one thing that you said that already stood out to me, which I often tell guys that are going through divorce, because that's who I mainly help, is that I want to be there when I didn't have somebody in my darkest of days.
Yes.
And I know you didn't say it that way, but it sounded very similar. So help me understand, like, what do you wish that you had during that? And what are you now trying to provide to these kids?
So I think I wish I had someone to listen without judgment, right? So when I was a young person, I grew up in a household where my parents stayed married, but it was a very dysfunctional marriage. My father drank a lot. He wasn't around for me. He was there, but he wasn't there for me. And so I did a lot of these things growing up on my own. I learned how to grow up and be a man, excuse me, on my own. And I didn't have that parental guidance, that fatherly guidance of like, hey, son, this is what you should do. Or, hey, son, like, great job out there today. Or, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. I didn't have any of that. My mom sort of played that role as best she could, but she wasn't very good at it other than she was there. Right. So I never had that. And I think nowadays, right, like because sports is so different 30 years later, there's so much pressure. I didn't even have the pressure. Like no one gave a shit, excuse my language. No one cared like if I was good or played in college or whatever. My family didn't care and the people around me really didn't judge me that way. But I put that pressure on myself 30 years ago. I don't know why. I don't know why it was so important to me, but it was. Now we live in a world 30 years later where everybody thinks it's the most important thing in the world. You got to be good. You got to go to college. You got to get a scholarship. You got to make mom and dad happy and make them proud in the world. And everybody like internalizes this youth sports thing, which is just so wild. And then I started to see it as a coach, as a parent. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like these kids, especially the competitive ones who want to elevate themselves over time from high school to college or whatever, they're going to need that support. They're going to need that non-judgmental support. And they're going to need the tools to navigate this pressure-filled environment that I didn't have to navigate. And I wanted to be that person. That was the inspiration.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And like you said, it's a very different world back then. The amount of pressure that you felt, mainly coming from yourself. I mean, like, how old are you?
I'll be 50 next week.
Okay. So you're even ahead of me. I'm 41. But I remember when I was growing up, I mean, kids just played sports. Like there weren't tryouts. Like I didn't try out for any team until high school.
Right.
There wasn't anything before then. It was just, you want to play a sport, you play a sport. And then, tryouts in high school. I mean, now they're trying out so young. I mean, my daughter has been dancing for years. She's 10 and she's been trying out for dance teams for the last couple of years at 10, right? Yeah. Anyone that wanted to dance would just dance back then, right? Like, and I think, it's really interesting you say that because the amount of pressure now, I wonder, do you think that there's been a reversal at all? Have you seen this where maybe people more our age, the ones that the pressure was coming from was more from us, now the ones more from the parents? But do you see that maybe because it's switched over to the parents that maybe kids put less pressure on themselves, or do you think that's changed at all? Just curious.
That's a really good question. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the kids who are motivated to be athletes, right? Like, I mean, listen, there's a segment of the population where I think kids are pushed into playing sports and the kids don't really want to do it. But that's not who I deal with. Right. I see it from hey, the kid wants to be good and they want to get better and they already have that pressure and now it's magnified. And that pressure in that tea kettle is way up because not only is the kid judging himself and putting pressure on himself and wanting to play good because he's put in all this time and energy into the sport and he wants to be good, but now he also feels the pressure of, and it's subtle, right? Sometimes it's just what mom and dad say, or they subconsciously know that mom and dad are spending lots of money and they're investing lots of time. And the kid, this comes up a lot, they subconsciously or they like internalize, like they do feel the pressure. It's not like the parents are saying like, you need to do this or else, but they know it's there, like just inside, like they don't want to let people down. That comes up a lot, right? So I think you get the natural, I want to be really good at this. And then you get the outside pressure and you put them together and they multiply. It's not additive.
What would you say is your main goal or mission in working with these kids?
Honestly, like I think when I get hired or when I work with somebody, it's a lot of times through the lens of like, I want to become a better performer. But at the end of the day, my job, you read off my mission, which is I want to give them the tools to handle the situations, right? Is the performance always going to be what they want it to be? No. But do they feel like they have the ability in those moments to like take a breath and be present and go, you know what, this is really hard. And maybe I'm not going to do exactly what I want to do, but either A, I'm okay with it. I can accept the outcomes if I do everything that's in my control, or B, I can actually make an adjustment in that moment that allows me to step forward and be resilient, to like step up to the moment because I know how to go. My brain's trying to take me here, but I want to go there. So let's like take a beat and go, let's go in this direction. That's what I like for them to be able to do, is like be in that pressure moment and go, I can change this.
I love that. I love that, especially that just take a moment. I mean, you already know this because it was how I came on the call today, which was frenzied, because I'd been spending a bunch of time trying to just log into the system that I used to record that wasn't working. And even though I had plenty of time to do it, it was not working. I was trying to figure out why it wasn't happening. And in those moments, even though that's not like a super high pressure situation, like it is, you're about to, shoot the last shot of the game or something, but I hold a very high commitment to being really professional and being on time and to make sure that my guests feel really comfortable, because it changes the whole setting of the podcast, right? The whole episode could be terrible if we're all just like stressed out and everything else. And that's something that I guess why I'm saying that is that's something that I often forget, is just to reset myself.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm thinking to myself like, hey, this guy's human. Like, I'm not judging you. I'm not going, oh, he hasn't, like, technology happens to me. I mean, I have a podcast and I know technology craps out on all of us. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, hey, this stuff happens. He's having a bad day. He's a human guy. Right. And I think that's also part of what I do. Right. Because I think whether it's you or me or a kid, we kind of look inward and go, everybody's looking at us. Everybody's judging us.
Right. And that's I love that you're saying
most people don't care.
No. Yeah. It's a really good point. So a buddy of mine used to host a really, really successful podcast. He has way more social media presence, tons of listeners, really, really successful. He ended up shutting it down for personal reasons. It was taking too much time away from his family. It's a whole thing. The episode's actually out. You guys go watch it. It's the one with Austin Slagle. He's formerly with the Failure Podcast. It's a really good episode. But the reason I'm telling you all that is I decided, when we've recorded 2 podcast episodes together now, and the most recent one that just came out, I decided to do it in a different location in my house, not in the studio here, and had all the cameras set up. Like, everything was dialed like 2 hours before he got here. I just wanted to make sure there was no issues, especially because going to his studio before, he's completely professional. Everything's dialed in. He has a producer there. It's a whole thing, right?
Wow.
So everything's dialed. We're good to go. We start recording. Literally everything that could go wrong went wrong, Mike. Everything. Like, one camera went out, then the other camera went out, then that camera went out, then the speakers went out, then the microphone went out. And it's just like, I was just constantly, and I'm there by myself, just constantly doing everything. And I'm thinking in my head this whole time, like, man, he's going to judge me for this. Like, he's got such a professional setup, all that sort of stuff. And literally he's just sitting there like, yep, been there. Yep, right. Been there. And I guess the reason I bring up that story is to, number one, be vulnerable and talk about what an idiot I can be when I'm trying to do these things. But number two, more importantly, is that to bring up what you just said. And I know that this happens even more with kids, but I still do it as a 41-year-old man. And that is thinking other people are judging us.
Yep.
And that our vulnerability makes us weak, when in fact, if we can just be honest, present, vulnerable, that's a strength. That's the biggest strength we can have, because then we can relate to other people that see that and they're like, he's human. That's fantastic. Anyone that you follow online that has all this massive success, the ones that really end up having followers for a long time are the ones that show vulnerability.
Yeah.
They're always like, this is hard for me. I still struggle with this. Even though I'm a billionaire, here's what I struggle with. Whatever, right?
It's so interesting you say that, because I just had this conversation about, like, I fight that urge to be more polished and perfect in those public settings, right? Like, whether it's a social media post or like, I feel like, oh, there's all these people who are so like proper and curated and polished, and I need to be more like that, and I need to like try to get my act together. But you're right. Ultimately, right? Like, people relate to people because they're human and they make mistakes, and we all do. And that's a large part of the reason why I go on these podcasts and talk about my own stuff, is because, like, the stuff is what's valuable, right? People don't want to hear perfect. It's annoying. Like, oh, you're so perfect. This is so great, versus like, oh man, you fell on your ass and got back up. Like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So on that note, to maybe switch gears a little bit, and we'll definitely come back to what you're doing, because I love talking about it. But speaking of this vulnerability piece, talking to 2 divorced dads right now that have obviously failed at things, including marriage, at least one. right? Well, I mean, at least two between the two of us. Well, maybe a couple for me, but those are details that I don't know if those are important. But here's where I'm going with this is that we talked about this a little bit before the recording. And that is why just men in general, and I'm not saying women don't, but men in general have a really hard time being vulnerable. And one of the things that you brought up that I thought was really fascinating that I want to talk about is how sometimes men even have more difficulty being vulnerable with their inner circle, their inner friends, the people that really know them well, than, a social media post or some other post where, I don't know, maybe it's easier. Maybe it's easier with some strangers, right? Talk about that a little bit. What do you think about that?
So that's certainly true for me. And I think I share that with you, but I couldn't help but think about when you were just saying, like, you were talking about being human before and how, like, that's what relates to other people. And all I could think about while you were saying that is that the one person who I feel like being vulnerable and honest with is not a good strategy is my ex-wife, right? Like she doesn't look at me and see me as being human. Like, oh, that's how I feel for him. I know it's a struggle. It's more like, no, get your shit together, figure this out because, I expect that you're going to do A, B, and C in your role as co-parent or whatever. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, her particularly, but yeah, people around me. Cause I think I want them to feel like I got my stuff together. Right. And that I do sometimes I come off as confident and I'm like, I'm doing this stuff. I'm working on this business and I changed my career and I've been through recovery and I've done all these things that are really, I'm very proud of, but there's also underneath it, there's a lot of struggle that nobody else sees. And I don't really want to let them into that a lot of the times, even though that's where I'm probably going to get the help and support that I need.
Why is that? What do you think is the fear that's underlying that? I would assume it's a fear.
Oh yeah. That's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I think there's still an element of feeling like I need to be perfect. And I've gotten way over that because like growing up when I was younger or even in my 20s and 30s, I always felt like I had to like give this perfect appearance because I was deeply flawed on the inside. And then I've progressed over the last 10, 15 years of my life where I've really made progress in terms of like working on that inner stuff and working on being okay with being human and being okay with admitting my faults and my mistakes. But I think ultimately, as you kind of get to the core of it with those people, I feel like they're more, and I think I've said this to you before, I think they're more likely to judge me. They care more. There's more of a conditional relationship. If I share it with your audience, they don't know me from a hole in the wall. Wow, this guy's really cool and brave and whatever. He talks about his stuff. But then you go into the inner circle and it's like, well, why did you do that? What's wrong with you? Like, why wouldn't you just, stay with your job where you're making good money and, leave your career and start a new business? Or why would you get divorced? Why don't you just stay? Like, I'll give you a great example too from my family. Like when I told my parents I was getting divorced, I think it was like Christmas of 2019. They were like, you sure you want to do that? Not, hey, are you okay? Or like, wow, I'm sorry. It was like, it was my fault. It was my mistake. Like, why would you want to do this? This is stupid. And it's like those kinds of experiences are the ones that lead me to believe like I can't really trust these people around me because they're judging me because they want me to generate an outcome that makes them comfortable and not, hey, I'm just seeing you for who you are. Like I got your back. It's more about them than it is me. And that really bothers me.
So do you think it's because I'm still trying to uncover the fear that you're talking about. And what the fear that I'm hearing you say is, well, then they'll know the like dirty part of me. You didn't use those words, but like the part of me that I don't want them to know maybe. But I think, what is it about? Like, I guess my question is, why is that easier than to share with a stranger? So you mentioned recovery. Yes. Recovery from some sort of an addiction?
Gambling addiction, yeah.
Gambling. Okay. So let's use this. Did you ever go to a 12-step program or any recovery program?
Yep.
Okay. So in a recovery program, right, like the main tenets of a recovery program is you walk in unknown and you walk out unknown, right? So you're not supposed to share anything. It's all supposed to be completely private, all that sort of stuff. And you get to know people there, obviously, and become friends, etc. But at least my recovery experience is I didn't know anybody in the rooms when I walked in there.
Me neither.
I got friends there, but I didn't walk in with friends. which also I think would be difficult. Like I've been to many, many recovery meetings with friends, and it's a different dynamic for them or for me if you're walking in there. And I've even found myself when I've walked in with them, when they've wanted me to be there, I still see them putting up more shields than they would if it was complete strangers. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why. Why is it easier for you or me or anyone going through recovery to walk into a room with random strangers and share the deepest, darkest, nastiest stuff of your life, but we can't do that with a spouse or a best friend? Like what is the downside, I guess, of us doing that to our inner circle that's not there for strangers? What do you think?
Well, I mean, in the recovery example, I think we all have the same affliction, right? So there's that like commonality, whereas with other people, they may have their own affliction, but they haven't surrendered, right? They haven't admitted that they're powerless over some behavior, right? So like there's still a bit of, I think, ego, right? And I was thinking about your question while you were saying it. So for me, it's not so much that they're going to judge me. I think they know the deepest, darkest inner stuff. Like I've been through it. I think it's more the fact that I try so hard I do a lot of really good things and they don't get recognized. And I try to fix the things that I don't do so well. So for me, the effort is there, but it's not the effort that gets recognized. Like, hey, you tried really hard. Yeah, you're not perfect, but you know what? I recognize that you're really like making an attempt to get better at this, where it's like, no, I don't care if you're trying, like do better. Right. And like for whatever reason, because I was always the person who tried to make everybody happy. And then I realized that I couldn't. And for the most part, I'm not worried about making anybody happy these days, except for a select group of people.
Yeah. You know, I think you just said something that really clicked for me. And I think it's that element of going back to the recovery example. It's that element of we all are admitting that we have failed at something in this room together.
Yeah.
So there's like a shared vulnerability.
Yes.
Whereas with an individual, unless you're really clear about the terms of your relationship, that you're going to be vulnerable about these things, there's not that shared vulnerability. So if you're interacting with somebody, even in your inner circle, that's not being vulnerable with you, I understand where that fear would come from, not wanting to be vulnerable with them. And it's almost like this, like you said, an ego thing. It's almost like this domino effect where it's like, well, if you try to make yourself look better in front of me, then I'm going to try even harder. Then you're going to try even harder. Then you're going to try even right now. All of a sudden, we're wearing 3-piece suits and have perfect hair and teeth and all the things. I'm kind of making fun of myself because I've been a financial planner for a very long time. And when I first started, that was me. Like no beard, 3-piece suit, exactly who you would expect to see in The Wolf of Wall Street or any Wall Street movie, right? Like that was my thing, because I wanted to present this image of everything's all together. I got it all figured out, especially because I was young and I was working with people 30 years my senior. I wanted them to make sure that they knew, like, I know how to deal with money. Yep. Like, look at how well prepared I was. And I was a fucking disaster inside. But on the outside, I looked amazing. Now I look like a fucking disaster on the outside, but on the inside, I'm amazing, right? So
yeah,
I'd take that every day. But I think that's really fascinating, Mike. I think that there's something to that. There's something to, especially, you know, I found this a lot in my life the last couple years, where I've been going through a pretty intense process of growing into the next level of myself, which seems to happen, right? It goes through cycles. There's a lot on the internet about how this is like every 7 years, there's a cycle. I'm at the peak of one of those cycles right now. And during that time, every single time I've gone through that cycle is when I lose a bunch of friends, make a bunch of new friends, and my inner circle changes just constantly, because I always find myself in this position where it's like, okay, now I'm willing to be more vulnerable, more open, more authentic with myself. And I find that the people around me that I thought were willing to do that aren't anymore. So then I have to choose, well, do I stick with them, or do I now find a new crew that is willing to do that?
I completely relate to that. Yeah. And it's interesting because like I've never heard that, and I've never certainly thought about that 7-year sort of cycle thing. But I think if I were like trying to do the math in my head looking back, I'm probably at the start of a new one. I'm probably at the bottom of a new one where I do go through that too, where I have to like look in the mirror and go like, the people who are around me kind of serve what I'm trying to do. And if they don't support it, or they're not in it unconditionally, that's okay. Like I'm not a vindictive, or I don't hold grudges. Like I get it. You got your stuff. I got mine. It happens. But are they like the ones that I want to bring into it? And unfortunately, I'm so introverted, and I'm such a loner, and I tend to isolate, which is not good for me. But like, I just find myself when I'm in those places, I just try to rely on myself way, way, way too much. And that does not serve me well. And so I struggle with that quite a bit. And that's why 12 steps was so good for me, because I could go down the steps in the church basement when it was in person, and now it's Zoom, but I could go down the steps and be like, hey, this is who I am. You all see me. And I went to recovery in New York City. There was 100 people at times in the room, and you'd stand up and you'd give your share, and my knees would shake. But like, I actually started to like love that and embrace it. Like, these people are like listening to me. They want to know what I have to say, whether it's, hey, I just decided to change my career, or like, hey, I'm getting divorced and my ex-wife's driving me crazy, or I have a health problem, or whatever. They didn't care. They listened to everything. They didn't just want to hear the good stuff. And then when you tell them the bad stuff, like, that's the thing too. People, to go back to what you were saying, I don't know if you said it this way, but I find when I share my struggles with people who aren't willing to be vulnerable, it makes them so uncomfortable that they just shut down. They don't
absolutely.
want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. And so like, I know that because I'm a very empathetic person as a coach and just as a human being. So I know already, if I try to share something with them that's really, really personal and upsetting for me and hard, they're just going to shut down because it makes them uncomfortable. So why would I even tell them, even though I want them to know?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because also as a coach, like one of the things that I struggle with as a coach is who this circle is that I can be vulnerable with, because there's just this pressure that I probably put on myself, probably similar to you, where it's like, well, I got to get my shit together because I'm a fucking coach, right? Like, who's going to listen to me
Yes.
if I don't have my shit together? And there's a balance, because obviously you have to be a bit vulnerable in order to be a good coach that people want to listen to. But I think sometimes my default is being more put together than more vulnerable, because it's scarier to be more vulnerable, even though it works. My buddy, I shouldn't even say my buddy, he's not my buddy anymore, but a long time ago, I had a friend, and we were a part of this kind of guys group together. And he was really, really good about, so the whole intention of the guys group, there was just a small group of us, and it was kind of just to get together once a week and talk about like what was going on in our lives, which is a pretty beautiful thing. There's not a lot of guys groups that actually do that outside of things like recovery, from my experience. But it was really great. One of the things that I always appreciated the most about him, I'm going to message him after we get off the recording today and tell him this, because I haven't seen him probably in a decade, but I'm going to tell him this. One of the things I appreciated the most about him is that he was always the one that was willing to get naked and jump in the pool first. And that's how he worded it. That was his analogy. Now, I'm going to extend that analogy for a second because of what you just said. And I've never thought about this before, but it makes a lot of sense in my mind. If you're at a party and let's say everybody's having a good time, but it's like, it's a clean party, right? Like everybody's just hanging out, doing whatever. And one random guy takes off all his clothes and jumps in the pool. You're going to have two very different responses from everybody, right? Who are the people going to be? They're going to be the people that are like, fuck yeah, and they do the same thing, right? Or maybe they're just like, fuck yeah, but they're too scared to do the same thing. But either way, they're stoked about it. And then you're going to have the people that are super offended.
Yep.
So I've never thought about this before, but vulnerability, like you just said, is the exact same way.
They come to it,
somebody gets
or they
vulnerable,
run from it.
jump in the pool. You're either going to jump in with them, or you're going to be like, fuck no, where am I? I'm out.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm at that point in my life where I want to surround myself with the people who want to jump in the pool. because I've already jumped in the pool 100 times. And every time I get on a podcast or every time I share in a meeting or every time I, whatever, like I'm doing that. And I've done it by choice because I know it helps me and it helps other people. So I've made that choice. And so, the people who are going to run the other way, that's fine. I think, so I want to go back to what you were kind of asking me about before, because then I'm going to tie it back to that. I think the thing that is the sticking point for me is that I can't run away. I can't get away from the people that don't want to jump in the pool. Meaning my ex-wife is there. I can't get rid of her. She's not going anywhere. My father is my father, right? Like, not that I have the best relationship with him, but he's still my father. And I feel like I have to be in that. And I have a couple of other people who fit that mold where it's like, honestly, like some days I just want to be like, I wish they weren't like in my life, but that's not a choice, right? Maybe it would be for some people, but it's not for me, right? I'm not going to run away from it, but I wish it was, right? And so like they're those people that don't want to jump in the pool with me and they're still there. They didn't leave the party. They're still at the party pointing their finger at me like, you shouldn't have done that. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. And this is something that I've had to learn, which has been tough. And that is, you obviously you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends. Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. That also doesn't mean that your family has to be in your inner circle.
They're not, but yes, I agree.
So that's, people often use the word boundaries, which I hate that word because usually people are using it because of the fact that they want to punish you for something. Just more often than not, from what I hear, even though that was not the original intent, mm-hmm. especially of the book Boundaries, which was a great book. That's not the intent. The intent is actually to help relationship. It's not to be punitive, even though that's how a lot of people use it. But here's the deal. If you're collecting your inner circle, whoever that is, you get to choose who that is. So just because, like, to your point, the ex-wife, the dad, the whoever, just because they're in your life doesn't mean they have to be in that inner circle.
True.
Which also was something that was difficult for me in my developing period, which maybe is difficult for the kids that you coach as well, is like you get to that point with your parents, right? Where you realize, like, are they in the inner circle or are they not in the inner circle? Because if they have the same values, beliefs, goals, vision, where they want their life to go mm-hmm. as me, wonderful. What a wonderful thing. But how often does that happen? Usually it doesn't. Usually you have to go out and find those people. And for myself, one thing that I found, especially the last couple of years doing a lot of things online with the podcast and social media and everything else, mm-hmm. is that most of the people that's true for me now are not local anymore.
Yes, I definitely go through that.
Which also sucks, to be honest. Like, I wish I had like my 5 inner circle that all lived
right. You could see
in my neighborhood. Like, that'd be the dream, right? Like every 90s sitcom ever, like the same 5 people going to the bar or the coffee shop or whatever. Like, the reason that was such a popular sitcom theme is because that's what we all want, right? We want the same exact 5 people that we can hang out with all the time, that are all on the exact same page, that have the same goals, vision, etc. But that's just not the world we live in.
Nope.
Right now, my 5 people are all over the fucking place. They're not even close.
Yep. Me too. And then when you, like, for me, like, I'll just kind of like piggyback on that. Like, for me, I find it really hard to make friends because I make friends through that lens of vulnerability. Right. So when I can sniff out when somebody's like full of shit. So like, once I know they're full of shit really quickly, I'm like, well, that person's not going to be my friend, but that also limits your social life and your choices, right? Like, it's like, well, I'm not going to just be friends with somebody just because they're physically breathing in my vicinity, right? But it would be way better if I had someone that I would like that's there, but they're not. So now you got to make choices of like, what am I willing to live with?
Agreed. And my mistake in my past is that I don't let go or move on fast enough. Whether it's been a romantic relationship, a marriage, a friendship, whatever, like, even when I see the signs, I'm just a very faithful to a fault. I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, just uncomfortable moving on sort of way. So I've had to learn of like, so one thing you said really stuck with me, because here's something that I've learned that was a really interesting learning for me. Again, also within this might have even been within the last year or so. I've found that the more authentically I'm living myself, my true self, my true inner self, which I believe, this is my belief is that everyone's true inner self is amazing and beautiful and exactly as they should be. And then we have all this other shit that gets in the way. But if I'm living my true, confident, clear, kind, authentic, masculine self, I've found that people have two reactions to that. They either love it and they're drawn to it and they're jumping in the pool naked with me, or they hate it and they're literally running as far as away from that party as possible. And what I found is that when I am putting on the chameleon suit, whatever that suit is, more people are just really here. They're like, yeah, he's a cool guy. He's nice. He's good. He's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. And so I've just found that like the more I can just be authentically me, and I think part of this is the vulnerability you're talking about, the more people are either attracted or repelled. And man, I still have a hard time with this at times. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I've arrived. But when I'm just living that out and then I see somebody attracted or repelled, it's such a beautiful feeling now because I'm like, oh my God, that just saved so much goddamn time. Like I was interviewing I have a couple coaches that I work with because every coach needs a coach. But I was interviewing more on the kind of life coach side the other day. And we had this conversation and we realized through this half-hour long, like I already thought we were on the same page, but we realized through this half-hour long conversation that like the way that she was life coaching and the way that I needed life coaching was not the same thing.
Yeah, not a fit.
So we agreed to, move on. And we're still connected. We're still part of a group together. I still think she's a lovely person. Like it doesn't change my feelings about her whatsoever. But man, that took one little call, which would have back in the day taken multiple times, multiple meetings until I finally just went with my gut that was like, yeah, you just need to move on. This is not what you need.
Well, I'll give you another example.
Please.
I keep coming back to recovery, but like a sponsor, right? Like I've had multiple sponsors over the years and I've stuck with them because I didn't want to tell them I need something else, or I've stuck with them because it's comfortable or convenient. And I know deep down inside, like, yeah, you know what? Like I probably need something different, but I don't want to hurt their feelings or I don't want to feel the discomfort. So I just sort of like ride it out and I'm not doing what's best for me because I want to not hurt someone's feelings. And that's not a good way to go. That's a good recipe for resentment or disaster or both.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to what you do and maybe actually let's switch gears a little bit. We haven't really talked about this yet. Let's talk a little bit about whatever you feel comfortable talking about as far as your divorce. I don't mean necessarily the story. I don't want to get into nitty gritty because I don't do that about my own divorce because It's not helpful.
Yeah.
But more, how did you went through that? When did you say your divorce finalized?
During COVID. So July of 2020.
Oh God, seriously? Mine was May of 2020, man. That's hilarious. Man, what a fucking year.
What a year.
Like,
we could probably just have a podcast about that.
Oh, we absolutely. Here's the thing. A lot of, and I know obviously COVID was difficult for a lot of different people. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever. However, I have met two different types of people. One, they experienced COVID, which is the majority of the world, right? Number two, they experienced COVID and something really fucking intense on top of COVID, like going through a traumatic, contentious divorce, as an example, right? And it's really interesting to like talk to people that just went through COVID. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not saying that sounds easy. I'm just saying that that time period for me was so fucking crazy. There was so much going on, right? But here's, I guess, we should do a whole podcast episode on that. I like that. Maybe I'll come to your podcast and we could do it on going through divorce and COVID. That'd be fun. I think I have a lot of entertaining stories. I don't know how open and vulnerable I'm going to get on your podcast, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe if you sweet talk me, maybe we'll do it. All right. Here's my original question before I got distracted with my ADHD squirrel brain. And that is going through that process while also coaching younger people. How did it shift your mindset as far as how you coached?
Okay. So I'll do you one better. I started my coaching practice that year. So I literally started the business that year when I got divorced and COVID hit. So I was basically on the ground floor. I finished my master's degree program in sports psychology. I graduated in March of 2020 officially. And I went out and I started my business. So like I was like on the
Oh, you graduated literally right when COVID started.
Correct.
Like right when the shutdown.
Correct.
Was right
March
then.
of 2020. Yep. Right at the shutdown. So we were still living in the marital home together. I was a couple of months away from moving out. So I think it's interesting for me because my divorce wasn't contentious for the most part. It was mutual. This is not working for either of us. And there's a bunch of reasons why, right? And I agree with you. I don't want to tell war stories, and nor do I think it's important. Ultimately, people ask me why I got divorced, and we grew apart. I wanted to go in this direction and do something different. And I wanted to shift my life. And my ex wanted to keep the life we had, right? The lifestyle and the stability and all that stuff. And ultimately it was, I need to do this and you don't want to do that. And it's time to move on. So I wasn't content.
Well, and pause real quick for a second,
sure,
because I just want to point out what you just said. And what you just said is the same thing we've been talking about this entire episode about inner circle people too, right? That's the same reason any friendship would transition as well. Because obviously you still have a relationship with your ex-wife. It's just different now. You still have children together, and there's still times that you have to communicate and all those sort of things, right? You can't just shut them out completely, which is a little different than a friend. Because a friend, you could just be like, fuck you, I'm out. Trust me, going through my divorce process, I was very, very jealous of people that got divorced with no kids, because you could just be like, fuck you, I'm out. And then just fucking move out of the country, and it's no big deal. Anyway. But what I just want to point out to the listeners and the viewers right now is that process you just talked about is the same process we have to go through with family, with friends, with anyone that we get to the point where we decide, I'm going this way, you're going this way. We're not going to do a right or wrong thing. Of course, I think the way I'm going is right, and you think the way you're going is right. So we're not going to compare what's right or wrong. It's just, I'm going this way, you're going this way. And you can only go that way so far until you finally just were like, oh, okay, I'm out.
Yes.
And some people do it here, especially in today's society, like where commitment seems to mean nothing. I sound like an old man right now, but where, a lot of people do it here, and a lot of people never do because they just never get the courage to do it, etc.
Yeah. And I think, and I can't speak for my ex, but I think she would probably tell you if she was talking to you without, my knowing. I think we both tried. Right. I think we wanted to keep it together for the children. There's a lot of fear there. Maybe it's just a rough patch. Maybe we can figure this out. But it ultimately got to the point where the values were so divergent that it wouldn't have worked. Right. I want this. I value this. You want this. You value that. And if we can't meet in the middle, which is ultimately where it ended up, then it's better to do it apart. Right. And I think one of the things that I would share about that process for me as well, and it's been probably the most important thing that happened in that process, was we agreed, and I don't know if she would remember this, but I always remember it and I always share it, is no matter what happens, the kids come first, right? And so whatever my issues have been, or whatever her issues with me and whatever my issues are with her, it's almost never been exposed to them. It's been, hey, we're going to act this way and we're going to put the children first because that's what's most important. And I would say for 95 to 98% of the last 5 years, that's exactly what's happened. So like, I feel really proud of that because that's really important. It wasn't that messy situation where, I just have my kids telling me about the guy, I'm going to say this, a guy that my children know their kids, their family's getting divorced, and the family's plastering it all over town. And then we don't live in a big place. And the kids were sort of like just recounting this to me because I don't know about it, because I don't give a shit what anybody does. I don't like people. So like, I don't like put my nose in their business, but they're telling me the story about how these people are getting divorced and how they're telling everybody and everybody knows and the kids are mortified and like all this thing. And I'm just like, man, I'm so glad that we were able to go, nope. Like, we're going to be civil. We're going to put the kids first. Whatever our differences are, we'll figure them out behind the scenes. Even if I want to MF her and she wants to MF me, it's not happening in public to other people. That's the other thing too. I never, unless there's people who know us together, right, who are friends with us together, where I could say something about her that's bothering me, I would never badmouth her to anybody. And I believe it. She's a good person. She's a good mother. She just wasn't for me anymore. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes and no. Like, that's not my experience at all. So yes, I know what you're saying. And I would encourage you to continue to be grateful for that, because you are in the minority, from my experience.
I am in the minority. You're right.
Of people that go through that divorce process, because from my experience, when people either break up a long-term relationship or a long-term divorce, it's generally speaking because they're doing this, but they're doing this so much that they don't like what the other person's doing, and they can't look past that, even if one can. So for all the listeners and viewers out there that that's not your experience, I hope that you don't feel any sort of shame or ultimate failure over that, because that is definitely, I don't know how many definitelys I can say, not my experience. And not trying to make myself look good at all, but I feel like I'm trying as hard as I can and have been for years to make that my experience. And it's just not happening. So I've been at a loss for years on how to make that happen.
Yeah.
And it's, to bring it back to recovery, we could bring it back to the serenity prayer. I've had to give up control of that, or the idea that I could control that, a long time ago, and only focus on my side of the street, only focus on my actions, only focus on what I do.
Yep.
Try my best to be the most loving, kind, genuine, authentic person that I can. I fuck that up all the time, but trying to do that as good as I can. And I guess my message to people that are listening where that's not your story, just know that you're not alone. The majority of us have a shitty story, but it's all in how you look at it. Because when I first went through this, I thought it was, oh, this is shit. This is unfair. Why is it that I see, like, my really good buddy is more like you. Him and his ex-wife get along really well. They always have. Like, it just, things work really well. And I've, I had to go through a period of jealousy and bitterness and resentment towards him of like, fuck you. Like, I'm putting in more effort than you are, yet you seem to be doing this better. Until I finally got to a point where I was like, man, that's why relationships change. Cause there's nothing all I can do is what I do.
Right.
All I can do is control my actions, and then just have to completely give up on caring about what anybody else thinks about me, their narrative of me, etc. Because I was the guy in your story. Like, false stories were going all around town about me, and I lost pretty much all of my friends because of it. And I finally had to get, like, it was very hurtful, difficult at the time, but I finally had to get to a point where I was like, you know what? If they're going to believe it,
right,
I can find a better friend. I can find a friend that might, I don't know, ask me about it.
Well, right. So a couple things you said that I want to acknowledge, because I think it's true. One is, you're right. Like, on reflection, I could feel sorry for myself that my situation's not very good, right? Then when I talk about it out loud, right, I realize it's really not bad at all relative to what other people go through. And so I should be grateful for that. I think that's number one.
But by the way, me too. This is all a spectrum, right? Like, I do not have the worst divorce ever.
Right.
By far. Like, right, exactly. There's a lot of really great things. She is a good mom. Like, it's that, there's good things that I could bring up. And it could be way worse. There's always a story that's worse. There's always a story that's better.
Yeah.
Right? If we compare, we as humans will always look at the negative of that comparison. We'll always look at the person that's like doing better than we are. But there's always somebody doing better than we are. There's always somebody doing worse than we are. If it goes back to effective blaming. Like, if I'm going to blame somebody for all the shit they did to me, I also have to blame them for everything that I learned through that.
Right.
Because that's the beautiful way of looking at it, is like, oh, this person did all this shit to me, and I'm just going to be bitter and resentful. How about they did all this shit to me, but guess what? That made me more authentic, more loving, more kind, more patient. Well, I got to blame them for that too. I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have that experience.
Exactly. And I think something you said, like, I don't know if I got bad mouth all over town. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, because I wasn't really paying attention and I moved out of town and whatever. But I will say I had a similar experience where a lot of our friends, right, just when they found out we were getting divorced, didn't even reach out. Like, not that I was the best of friends with them, but just like, hey, how you doing? Sorry to hear. Whatever. that would just be the decent thing to do. And that never happened. And like, that bothered me for a bit. Then I was like, to your point, I was like, okay, like if those people are going to be like that, then honestly, gives a shit, like,
and actually,
it's not worth worrying about.
Now that you're saying this too, I want to give a special message to the married folk right now. Okay. Especially, more specifically, the married folk who have never been divorced, or just anyone that's been in a long-term relationship that's never been divorced. This message is for you. Listen very loud and clear. Please, please, on the behalf of every divorced person ever. I'm just going to speak on behalf of all divorced people. Please do this. I've heard this story, Mike, that you just said so many times, where somebody goes through a divorce, the friends don't even reach out to the person. When somebody's going through a divorce, even if it's an easy divorce, it's never an easy divorce. You're upsetting the most important relationship in your life. A lot of the times with somebody that you're still going to have a relationship with because you have children with. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people, especially that have never been through it before, don't know what to say. They're fearful that they're going to say the wrong thing. They don't want to appear like they're choosing sides. And I'm encouraging you, please, married folk, just remove all that from your mind and just realize that if you care about this person at all, they're going through maybe the most difficult experience in their life. And the only thing they want, and Mike, you can disagree with me if you want here, the only thing they want, or let's say the main thing they want, is just somebody to reach out to them just to say that they care.
Yep.
And that they're there and that they love them. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to support them, just to be there.
So yes, I agree. I think you're 100% right. That's all I wanted, right? I didn't want anybody to tell me I was right. I don't want anybody to tell me. They just, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, I acknowledge that you're alive and breathing, and like, I'm sorry this happened for whatever the reasons, right? That didn't happen. Okay, fine. But I think it goes back to what we had been talking about so much before, which is it makes people, especially ones who are married, so uncomfortable to address the topic of divorce that they just don't know what to say in their mind. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like even like touch it because it like makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know what to say that I'll just pretend like it didn't happen, because like then it makes them think about, well, what if I was going to get divorced? And what if I was sitting in an apartment, renting a 1-bedroom apartment all by yourself, going through a divorce and no one's around. And like, I don't want to think about that. So we'll just pretend.
And they don't want to see it. It's just back to the analogy of the person jumping in the pool naked, right?
Right.
Like, I just don't want to see it. So I'm just leaving.
Right. Exactly. They don't want to see it. They don't want to know what it looks like. And I get it, but like, it hurts, when you're that guy and nobody wants to like at least check in and say, hey, are you alive? Are you okay? That's tough, because I am that guy in my life. Like, I reach out to people and say, are you okay? I'm checking in on you. What's going on? Like, whether as a coach or a father or a friend, that's what I do. And so when other people don't do it, I don't take offense to it, because like you said, I can only control my actions, keep my side of the street clean. People have shit going on in their lives. I'm not the center of the universe. At the same time, you kind of wish, hey, are they thinking about me? Like, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay? You're the divorced guy, lives by himself. Like, maybe I'll check in and you didn't fall asleep in a pool of your own vomit, all by yourself. Like, nope.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is the key point here is that, again, for anyone that's in this situation, the key point here is that you don't need to know what to say.
Yes.
Because let's take it even deeper. There are no right words. There are no right words for somebody going through a traumatic experience like a divorce. There just aren't. There's no words that you're going to say that they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. Like, there's just any. It's right actions. It's just right presence. That's it. Just, hey, love you, thinking about you. If you ever want to talk about anything, let me know. That's it. That's it. There's nothing. You don't have to ask a question. You don't have to come up with the perfect thing to say. Like, there's just...
It's actually something that guides my coaching. It's one of these things I developed when I was going through my graduate program, and we had to develop a philosophy of practice. And when I was thinking about my coaching and what I wanted it to look like, it was intent over content. So what do I mean by that? What you just said is a perfect example of that. it's the intention, right? Like if I'm coaching somebody, it's like my intent doesn't, the intervention, the words, the questions, they don't have to be perfect. It's, do I want to help you? Right? Or do I want to put myself in there with you? And like my intention is to help you do whatever you want to do better. Same thing, right? Reaching out, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, hey, are you there? Hey, I know you're there. Are you okay? Checking in. If you need anything, I'm here. That's it. And you did your job. You kept your side of the street clean versus I've got to be perfect in what I say or else I'm not going to say anything. And now it's like, why?
It's true. But let's make sure we take that a step further too.
Okay.
I agree with you that it's intent over content, but there can be a lot of intent with no action.
Oh yeah. I guess it's implied.
Right.
It
is.
in my thinking, it's implied.
But I talk about this a lot where intention without action is worthless.
Yep.
So yes, if the intent's there, but going back to our situation, there could be that married couple that like they have good intent towards reaching out to them and everything else, and they take no action. Well, again, worthless, right? So yes, intent with action, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Content doesn't matter whatsoever. It's the same. So I've been in sales my whole life. And the thing, if I could take all of sales and put it into just a little teeny box, it's very, very simple. It is, I have to show up authentically myself and really care about the person I'm talking with. That's number one, is I just have to be authentic and be me. And number two is I just have to ask good questions.
Yep.
That's it. I don't have to know shit. I don't have to produce anything. I don't have to say specs of whatever. None of that is true. It's the same way in a friendship. All I want in a friendship, especially if I'm going through a hard time, is somebody who shows up as themselves, who cares about me, who asks good questions.
Is curious and listens. Yep.
What's going on? Seems like maybe you're having a tough time right now. Do you want to talk about that? That's it.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. That's exactly what I want as well. And it's, you know what? It's not easy to come by.
No, man. It's not. I mean, it's not even easy to come by in life. Like you just mentioned, you have taken on the role of being that in other people's lives, which I think is beautiful, because I think if you ask most people would say most other people don't do that, which is interesting. Like if we all say that I'm the person that does that and nobody else does that, that can't all be true. Like some of us have to be wrong in that, but I feel the exact same way you do. I feel like most of the outreach comes from my side, but instead of, labeling it that way, which might also make me sound like a victim, what I choose to do on my good days is just realize, no, I just want to be that person. Like I want to be the person that's reaching out and telling people that I love them and care about them.
Yes.
You're driving down the road and you think about somebody, text them, right? Thinking about you, love you, here for you. That's it. You know somebody going through a divorce? It's that simple.
Yes.
It's that simple. Because you would be surprised, all the listeners and viewers, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but you would be surprised on how few people reach out when you're going through something like a divorce. It surprised me when I went through mine. I was like, what happened to all my really good friends that don't seem to care? And it's not that they don't care. They just don't think they know what to do and that it's uncomfortable. And
it makes them so uncomfortable.
They see this crazy guy jumping in this pool naked and they're like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to distance myself from that guy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm out. This party got weird, So I get that. All right. So let's wrap this. I know we're about out of time here, so let's wrap this up. But actually, before we do that, what's a way for people to get a hold of you, Mike, if they want to reach out?
Best way is check my website. It's Michael V as in Vincent Huber, HUBER.com. And you can contact me through the site. You can check out my social media. You can read my blogs and check out my podcast. But more than anything, if there's anything that you felt like resonated in this conversation, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Mike. And that'll be in the show notes as well for anyone listening or watching right now. So go check that out. There'll be a link to his website. As we end here, Mike, I usually like to ask people a closing thought. If there's anything that you think, we talked about a lot today. We talked about you being there for younger guys that, as a person that you didn't have when you were going through that, going through the difficult times, going through the stressful times, going through the hard times. We talked obviously about divorce and about, speaking of going through hard times and people not being there for you, et cetera. Is there any closing thought that you would have to that theme that you want to leave everybody with?
That's a hard one. The thing that comes to mind is be kind to yourself. Right? Something I struggle with. And we sat here for an hour talking, and a lot of things I talked about were things that I struggled to go through over the course of my life. And I've left out some things. It's easy to talk about it now to a certain extent. Easier, not necessarily easy. But when I was going through those things, I was not necessarily very kind to myself. I judged myself more than anybody. I should do this. I should do that. Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? All that stuff. And I think that that's really important, to just kind of give yourself a break sometimes when things aren't going the way you want them to. And that's just from firsthand experience of doing it all the time to myself.
Man, I relate to that so much. And honestly, like, the world can be a pretty dark, rough place. It can also be a beautiful, loving place, but it can be a really dark, rough place. And man, it's even more rough and dark if you're unkind to yourself.
Yes, 100%.
It's just, if I've also found that if you're not kind to yourself, it's really hard to be kind to other people. Like authentically caring and kind to other people. Because if you really don't think that you're worth much, why are you going to think anybody else is worth much?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you being here, man. This was a good conversation.
Great, man. I loved it. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, you derelicts. Again, if you like the episode too, please like it, subscribe. That helps us. Add a comment. If there was something that you heard today that you really want to add a comment down below, and reach out to Mike. He's there as well. So until next time, we'll see you later.